The starship Eclipse drifted silently through the vast emptiness of space, its sleek metallic surface glinting faintly under the distant light of a dying sun. Inside, Captain Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, his sharp blue eyes scanning the rows of monitors and control panels in front of him. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of its engines and the occasional beep from the navigation console. It had been weeks since they left Earth's orbit, tasked with patrolling the outer edges of human-controlled space. So far, the mission had been uneventful, just routine checks and long stretches of silence. Ryan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. Space travel could be monotonous, but it also carried an undercurrent of tension. You never knew what might happen out here, far from the safety of Earth. He glanced over at Lieutenant Emily Dawson, who sat at her station monitoring communications. Her fingers moved deftly across the keyboard as she scanned frequencies for anything unusual. She looked up briefly, catching Ryan's gaze, and gave him a small smile before returning to her work. Suddenly, the calm was shattered by a sharp crackle from the speakers. Emily froze, her hands hovering over the controls. "Captain," she said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency, "I'm picking up something." Ryan straightened immediately. "What is it?" "It's a distress signal." Emily adjusted the dials, trying to clear the static. "It's weak, but I can make out some words." The entire bridge crew turned their attention to her station. Everyone held their breath as fragments of the message began to come through. SOS. Deathworlder. Fleet advancing. Coordinates 7 to 9. Then the transmission cut off abruptly, leaving only dead air. For a moment, no one spoke. The term Deathworlders hung heavily in the room. Everyone aboard the Eclipse knew what it meant. The Deathworlders were a terrifying alien species known for their brutal conquests and merciless tactics. They came from a harsh, unforgiving planet where survival depended on strength and aggression. Over decades, they had expanded their territory relentlessly, wiping out civilizations that stood in their way. Humanity had clashed with them several times, always barely managing to hold its ground. Now, hearing that they were advancing into human space sent a chill down everyone's spine. Ryan broke the silence. "Can you confirm the origin of the signal?" he asked, his tone calm but firm. Emily nodded, her fingers flying over the keyboard again. "Working on it, sir."
Give
me a minute." After a few tense seconds, she looked up. "It's coming from Sector 7, -2, -9. That's deep in the frontier zone, farther than we've ever encountered them before." Dr. Alan Parker, the ship's science advisor, stepped forward. His wiry frame and glasses made him look more like a professor than someone suited for space travel, but his mind was sharp and his knowledge invaluable. "This doesn't add up," he said, frowning. "The Deathworlders have never ventured this far into our territory without provocation. Something must have changed." Ryan crossed his arms, thinking hard. "We need to investigate. If there are survivors or even just intelligence about their movements, it could mean the difference between life and death for millions back home." Lieutenant Dawson hesitated. "Sir, we're talking about entering hostile territory. We don't know how many ships are out there or what kind of firepower they're carrying." "I agree with Emily," added Chief Engineer Daniel Ross, joining the conversation, tall and broad-shouldered. Daniel had a gruff demeanor, but a knack for keeping the Eclipse running smoothly despite its age. "Our systems aren't exactly top of the line. If we run into trouble, we might not get out alive." Ryan understood their concerns, but he couldn't ignore the stakes. "We didn't sign up for easy missions," he said firmly. "Deathworlders are moving this far in. It means they're planning something big. We owe it to Earth to find out what." After a brief pause, he turned to Navigator Clara Hayes, a young woman with curly brown hair and a focused expression. "Clara, plot a course for Sector 7, -2, -9. Let's move quickly, but cautiously." Clara nodded and got to work, her fingers tapping rapidly on the navigation panel. Within moments, the Eclipse shifted direction, its engines roaring softly as it accelerated toward the coordinates. As the ship sped through the void, the mood aboard grew somber. Each member of the crew prepared themselves mentally for what lay ahead. Sergeant Lucas Bennett, head of the security team, gathered his soldiers in the armory to review protocols and check equipment. known for his no-nonsense attitude and unwavering loyalty. Lucas inspired confidence in those around him. "Listen up," he said, addressing his team. "We don't know what we're walking into, so stay sharp. Our job is to protect this ship and everyone on it." "Got it," his team responded, with determined nods. They trusted Lucas implicitly and would follow him anywhere. Meanwhile, Dr. Parker retreated to the lab, poring over data about the Deathworlders. He studied reports of previous encounters, analyzing patterns in their behavior and technology. Though he wasn't a soldier, he knew that understanding the enemy was just as important as having weapons. Hours passed, and the eclipse drew closer to its destination. Finally, the sector came into view, a barren expanse dotted with asteroids and debris. At first glance, it seemed empty, but as they approached, the wreckage of a small outpost became visible. The structures were charred and crumbling, evidence of a fierce battle. Rescue pods floated nearby, their surfaces scorched and broken. Ryan ordered a scan of the area. "Anything?" he asked Emily, who was back at her station. "Negative, sir," she replied. "No life signs detected." "Led a team outside to investigate." Clad in environmental suits, they carefully explored the ruins. What they found painted a grim picture. Bodies lay scattered among the debris, their uniforms identifying them as members of a research team stationed at the outpost. Some had been burned beyond recognition. Others bore signs of violent deaths. It was clear that the Deathworlders had shown no mercy. Back aboard the Eclipse, Lucas reported his findings to Ryan. "It's bad, sir. Whoever these people were, they didn't stand a chance." Dr. Parker examined samples brought back from the scene. From the damage patterns, it looks like the Deathworlders used plasma-based weaponry. Highly destructive and efficient. Ryan clenched his jaw, anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. "They've never attacked civilians like this before. This isn't just expansion, it's extermination," Emily interrupted, her voice trembling slightly. "Captain, I managed to recover some data from the outpost's servers. There's a log entry dated just before the attack." She played the recording. A man's voice, strained and fearful, echoed through the bridge. "This is Outpost Delta 7. We're under heavy fire. The Deathworlders. They're using something new. Some kind of weapon we've never seen before. It's tearing through our defenses like paper, requesting immediate evac." The message ended abruptly, replaced by static. The implications were chilling. A new weapon, one powerful enough to overwhelm human defenses, could spell disaster for Earth. Ryan knew they had to act fast. "We need to track them," he said decisively. "Find out where they're headed next." Dr. Parker raised a hand. "With respect, Captain, we're risking a lot by pursuing them. We don't have reinforcements out here if we encounter their fleet." "I know the risks," Ryan interrupted. "If we don't figure out what they're planning, humanity will pay the price. We're doing this not just for ourselves, but for everyone back home." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but ultimately nodded in agreement. They had signed up for danger when they joined the mission, and now it was time to face it head-on. As the Eclipse set course once again, heading deeper into unknown territory, each person aboard braced themselves for whatever horrors awaited them. One thing was certain: the days ahead would test their courage, their resolve, and perhaps their very survival. The Eclipse moved cautiously through the wreckage of Outpost Delta 7, scanners sweeping the area for any trace of the Deathworlder fleet. The crew worked in tense silence, each person focused on their task. Captain Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main view screen as the ship's sensors analyzed the debris field. The outpost had been reduced to ruins, but there were still fragments of technology and scattered pieces of equipment floating among the remains. If they could find anything useful, data logs, weapons, or even clues about the enemy's next move, might give humanity a fighting chance. Lieutenant Emily Dawson sat at her station, her fingers flying over the controls as she sifted through the signals picked up by the ship's receivers. "Captain," she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the quiet, "I've found something. There's residual energy in the area traces of their propulsion systems." Ryan turned to her immediately. "Can you track it?" Emily hesitated, glancing at her screen. "It's faint, but I think so." Their ships must have passed through here recently. If we follow the trail, we might be able to locate them. Dr. Alan Parker stepped closer, his brow furrowed. If we're going after them, we need to prepare for the worst. Their new weapon, if the logs are accurate, could be catastrophic. Can't assume they'll ignore us if we cross paths. Ryan nodded. He knew the risks, but turning back wasn't an option. We'll proceed carefully, he said firmly. Clara, plot a course along the energy trail. Keep us at a safe distance until we know more. Navigator Clara Hayes adjusted the ship's trajectory, her hands steady, despite the weight of the decision. The Eclipse began to move again, slipping silently through the void as it followed the faint traces left behind by the Deathworlders. The crew braced themselves for what lay ahead, knowing that every second brought them closer to danger. Hours later, the Eclipse reached the edge of the debris field. Ahead, the vast emptiness of space stretched out endlessly. But as the ship's sensors scanned the area, something unexpected appeared on the monitors. Scattered across the region were the remnants of other alien vessels, not human ones. The wreckage was twisted and broken, bearing the unmistakable marks of violent destruction. "What is this?" Clara asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. She zoomed in on the images displayed on her screen. "These aren't our ships. There's something else." Dr. Parker leaned forward, studying the shapes of the ruined vessels. "Judging by the design, these belong to the Krina species we've encountered before. They're traders, not fighters. Whatever happened here, it wasn't a battle. It was an extermination." The realization sent a chill through the crew. The Deathworlders weren't just targeting humans. They were systematically wiping out anyone who crossed their path. This wasn't about conquest. It was about erasure. Ryan clenched his fists, his jaw tight with anger. "They're clearing the way," he muttered, "removing any obstacles between them and whatever their goal is." Emily spoke up, her tone hesitant. "Hey, sir, if they're attacking everyone, then maybe we're not their primary target. Maybe we're just in the way." "That doesn't make us any safer," Ryan replied grimly. "They see us as a threat, or even just an inconvenience. They won't hesitate to destroy us." As the Eclipse continued along the energy trail, the tension aboard the ship grew palpable. Chief Engineer Daniel Ross worked tirelessly in the engine room, ensuring that the ship's aging systems remained operational. He knew that their survival depended on keeping the Eclipse running smoothly, but the strain was beginning to show. Supplies were limited, and the jump driver, risky piece of experimental technology, was their only hope of escaping if things went wrong. Even then, it hadn't been fully tested, and using it could put the entire crew in jeopardy. Despite the mounting pressure, the crew pressed on. Each passing hour brought them deeper into uncharted territory. Far from the safety of Earth, the isolation weighed heavily on everyone, especially Sergeant Lucas Bennett and his security team. Trained for combat, they preferred action to waiting. But the uncertainty of their mission left them restless. Lucas spent much of his time reviewing tactics and preparing his soldiers for the worst, knowing that their skills might soon be put to the ultimate test. Then, without warning, the sensors detected movement nearby. A shadow flickered across the view screen too fast to identify at first. Emily's hands flew to her console as she tried to lock onto the source. "Captain," she exclaimed. "There's something out there." Ryan's heart raced as he ordered the ship to slow down. "Magnify the image," he commanded. The view screen zoomed in, revealing a sleek, menacing silhouette. It was a Deathworlder scout ship, its jagged design resembling the spine of some predatory creature. The vessel hovered silently, its weapons systems powered down for now. "They haven't spotted us yet," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible. "Not yet," Ryan agreed. He turned to Lucas. "Sergeant, assemble your team. Be ready for anything." Lucas nodded and hurried off the bridge, rallying his soldiers. Meanwhile, Dr. Parker approached Ryan, his expression grave. "Captain, we can't fight them head-on. That ship could tear us apart." "I'm aware," Ryan said curtly. "But we can't let them report our position either. If they alert the rest of their fleet, we're finished." Parker hesitated, then nodded. "What's the plan?" Ryan took a deep breath. considering their options. We disabled them without destroying them. If we can capture that ship, we might learn something valuable, but we'll need to act quickly. The crew sprang into action. Clara adjusted the ship's course, bringing the Eclipse closer to the scout ship while remaining hidden in the shadow of a nearby asteroid. Daniel monitored the engines, making sure they were ready for evasive maneuvers. Emily worked to jam the scout ship's communications, preventing it from calling for reinforcements. Meanwhile, Lucas and his team prepared boarding pods, ready to strike if necessary. When the moment came, Ryan gave the order. The Eclipse emerged from its hiding place, firing a precise volley of EMP blasts, designed to disable the scout ship's systems without causing permanent damage. The alien vessel shuddered under the attack, its lights flickering as its power failed. For a brief moment, it seemed like the plan had worked, but then the scout ship retaliated, launching a barrage of plasma bolts that narrowly missed the Eclipse. "Shields holding, but they won't last long," Clara shouted, her hands flying over the controls as she maneuvered the ship out of harm's way. "We need to finish this now," Ryan barked. He turned to Lucas. "Go. Take your team and secure that ship." Lucas didn't hesitate. With a sharp nod, he led his soldiers into the boarding pods, which launched toward the disabled scout ship. As they approached, the tension inside the pods was almost unbearable. None of them knew what awaited them on the alien vessel, but they were ready to face it. The pods docked with a clang, and Lucas's team moved swiftly, breaching the scout ship's hull. Inside, they found a labyrinth of dark, twisting corridors lined with pulsating veins of organic material. The interior was alive, shifting and groaning, as if the ship itself were a living organism. Strange, acrid smells filled the air, and the faint hum of machinery echoed through the halls. Lucas signaled for his team to spread out, searching for the control room. Along the way, they encountered two Deathworlder soldiers tall, hulking figures with exoskeletons fused to their bodies. The aliens lunged at them, their claws gleaming in the dim light. A fierce firefight erupted, the sound of blaster fire reverberating through the narrow passages. One of the Deathworlders fell, but the other fought ferociously, forcing Lucas and his team to retreat momentarily. Finally, after a desperate struggle, the humans managed to subdue the remaining soldier. Exhausted but victorious, Lucas radioed back to the Eclipse. "Captain, we've secured the ship. Minimal casualties on our side. What are your orders?" Ryan's voice crackled over the comms. "Good work, Sergeant. Bring the prisoner aboard. We'll interrogate it and see what we can learn." And his team escorted the captured Deathworlder back to the Eclipse. The rest of the crew breathed a collective sigh of relief. They had succeeded in disabling the scout ship and capturing one of the enemy, a rare opportunity to gain insight into their plans. But as the alien was brought aboard, bound and restrained, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of a much larger threat. The Deathworlders were advancing, and their motives remained a mystery. Whatever their goal, it was clear that humanity's survival depended on uncovering the truth and stopping them before it was too late. The Eclipse hovered silently in the cold void of space, its crew tense but focused. The captured Deathworlder was secured in the ship's containment bay, a specialized chamber designed to hold dangerous prisoners. Its grotesque form loomed behind a thick, reinforced glass barrier. The alien's body was a strange mix of organic tissue and metallic implants, its exoskeleton glinting faintly under the harsh lights. Its glowing eyes darted around the room, radiating hostility and defiance. Dr. Alan Parker stood outside the chamber, studying the creature with a mixture of fascination and unease. He had spent years researching alien species, but nothing could have prepared him for this. The Deathworlders were unlike any other beings humanity had encountered, part machine, part organism, and entirely terrifying. Their presence alone was enough to send shivers down his spine. Captain Ryan Carter joined him, his expression grim. "Can you get anything out of it?" he asked, his voice low. Parker shook his head. "Not yet. Their language is complex, and their neural patterns are unusual. I'll need time to set up an interface." Ryan nodded, though his patience was wearing thin. Every second they delayed meant the Deathworlder fleet was getting closer to Earth. "Do what you can," he said firmly. "We need answers and fast." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Emily Dawson worked tirelessly in the communications room, trying to piece together more information from the data recovered at Outpost Delta 7. She had managed to extract fragments of logs and sensor readings, but much of it was corrupted. Still, she refused to give up. Her fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard as lines of code scrolled across her screen. Finally, after hours of effort, she found a partial map showing potential destinations for the Deathworlder. "Fleet Captain," she called out, her voice tinged with urgency. "I think I've got something." Ryan hurried to her station, leaning over her shoulder to examine the map. It displayed several star systems marked with red dots. "What am I looking at?" "These are possible targets," Emily explained. "Based on their trajectory, these systems are in the path of the fleet. If we're right about where they're headed, they could reach one of them within days." Ryan frowned. "Any human colonies in those systems?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir. There's a small mining colony in System Gamma 4. About 200 people live there." Ryan's jaw tightened. "If the Deathworlders hit that colony, there won't be anyone left to tell the story. We need to warn them." Before he could issue further orders, Daniel Ross, the chief engineer, approached him. His face was pale, and sweat glistened on his forehead. "Captain, we've got another problem. The jump drive, it's overheating." Ryan's heart sank. The jump drive was their only hope of reaching Gamma 4 in time. Without it, they'd be stuck traveling at sublight speeds, arriving long after the Deathworlders had already struck. "How bad is it?" Daniel wiped his brow. "Bad enough. The core's unstable. If we try to use it now, we risk blowing the whole ship apart." Ryan clenched his fists, frustration bubbling beneath his calm exterior. "Fix it," he ordered. "Whatever it takes, make it work." Daniel nodded and rushed back to the engine room, barking instructions to his team. The engineers scrambled to repair the damaged components, their tools clanging against metal as they worked frantically. Time was running out, and everyone aboard the Eclipse felt the weight of the situation pressing down on them. Back in the containment bay, Dr. Parker made slow but steady progress. Using a combination of neural interfaces and linguistic algorithms, he attempted to establish communication with the captive Deathworlder. At first the creature resisted, growling and thrashing violently against its restraints. But Parker persisted, carefully calibrating the equipment until the alien finally responded. "What do you want?" The Deathworlder snarled, its voice distorted by the translation software. Parker leaned closer, his glasses fogging slightly from the tension. "Why are you attacking us? What do you want?" The Deathworlder's glowing eyes narrowed, and for a moment it seemed like it wouldn't answer. Then, reluctantly, it spoke. "You stand in our way. You must be removed." "That's not an answer," Parker pressed. "Your fleet has never come this far before. Why now?" The creature hesitated, its gaze flickering uncertainly. Finally, it muttered, "We flee." Parker froze, stunned by the admission. "Flee? From what?" The Deathworlder didn't respond immediately. Instead, it let out a low, guttural growl as if debating whether or not to continue. When it finally spoke, again its tone was filled with dread. "Something comes for us. Something worse than death." Parker's mind raced. Whatever the Deathworlders feared, it had driven them to abandon their own territory and invade others. This wasn't just an expansion, it was survival. And if they were running, humanity might soon face the same threat. He quickly relayed the information to Ryan, who listened intently. "Are you sure about this?" the captain asked. "As sure as I can be," Parker replied. "If we don't stop them, we'll have two enemies to deal with instead of one." Ryan nodded grimly. "Then we don't have a choice. We protect the colony and figure out how to stop the Deathworlders and whatever's chasing them." As the engineers worked feverishly to repair the jump drive, the rest of the crew prepared for the journey ahead. Sergeant Lucas Bennett led his security team in drills, ensuring they were ready for combat. Clara Hayes plotted alternate routes to Game of 4, just in case the jump drive failed completely. Emily continued analyzing the data, searching for any clues that might give them an edge against the Deathworlders. Finally, after hours of grueling effort, Daniel emerged from the engine room, his face streaked with grease. "It's done," he announced, exhaustion evident in his voice. "The jump drive is stable for now. We can make one trip, but I can't guarantee it'll hold up afterward." Ryan placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Good work. That's all we need." With the jump drive operational, the Eclipse set course for Game of 4. As the ship entered hyperspace, the crew braced themselves for what lay ahead. They knew the odds were against them. The Deathworlders were powerful, ruthless, and relentless. But they also knew they couldn't give up. Too many lives depended on their success. Hours later, the Eclipse dropped out of hyperspace near Game of 4. The sight that greeted them was devastating. The mining colony was engulfed in flames, its structures crumbling under relentless bombardment. Plasma bolts streaked through the air as Deathworlder ships circled overhead, raining destruction down on the helpless settlers. Ryan's hands clenched into fists as he watched the scene unfold. "We're too late," he muttered bitterly. But then, amidst the chaos, a faint signal appeared on the sensors. "Captain," Emily shouted. "There's a distress call coming from the surface." Ryan's eyes snapped to her. "Survivors. It's possible," Emily replied. "The signal's weak, but it's definitely human." Without hesitation, Ryan gave the order. "Lucas, take your team down there. Find whoever's left and bring them back." Lucas nodded sharply and led his soldiers to the drop pods. As they descended toward the burning colony, the heat and smoke assaulted their senses. Fires raged everywhere, and the ground was littered with debris. Despite the destruction, they pressed forward. Following the signal to its source, they found a group of terrified colonists huddled in a makeshift bunker, their faces streaked with soot and tears. A young woman stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Please, help us." Lucas gestured for his team to secure the area. "We're here to get you out. Stay close and follow us." As the soldiers escorted the survivors back to the drop pods, plasma bolts whizzed past, narrowly missing them. The Deathworlder ships had spotted the rescue operation and were moving to intercept. Back aboard the Eclipse, Ryan ordered evasive maneuvers, keeping the ship just out of range while Lucas and his team completed their mission. When the last pod docked safely, Ryan wasted no time. "Get us out of here," he commanded. Clara activated the jump drive once more, and the Eclipse leaped into hyperspace, leaving the devastation of Game of 4 behind. The survivors were taken to the medical bay, where doctors tended to their injuries and provided comfort. Though shaken, they were alive and grateful, but the victory was bittersweet. The crew of the Eclipse knew they had only delayed the inevitable. The Deathworlders were still advancing, and the unknown threat they fled from loomed ominously on the horizon. Humanity's fight for survival had only just begun. The Eclipse sped through the endless void of space, its crew weary but determined. The survivors from Game of 4 were safe aboard the ship, but their presence served as a grim reminder of the devastation humanity faced.
"Captain."
Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the view screen as the stars streaked past in streaks of light. The jump drive had worked barely, but Daniel Ross warned that it wouldn't hold up for another trip. If they encountered the Deathworlders again, they'd have to rely on their wits and whatever weapons they could muster in the medical bay. Dr. Alan Parker tended to the rescued colonists while continuing his efforts to extract more information. From the captured Deathworlder, the alien remained defiant, but Parker's persistence paid off. Using advanced neural interfaces, he managed to establish a deeper connection with the creature. Its fragmented thoughts revealed glimpses of their enemies' motivations and their fear. "They're running," Parker explained to Ryan later, his voice tinged with both awe and dread. "Whatever is chasing them, it's beyond anything we've ever imagined. They call it the Voidbringer." Ryan frowned. "The Voidbringer? What is that?" Parker shook his head. "I don't know yet. Their memories are jumbled, almost like they're trying to suppress it. But one thing is clear, they believe it will consume everything in its path. That's why they're expanding so aggressively." They're not just conquering, they're fleeing. Ryan rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. So we're facing two threats instead of one? The Deathworlders and this Voidbringer? It seems that way, Parker agreed. But if we can understand what they're running from, maybe we can use it against them. Ryan nodded slowly. It was a long shot, but they didn't have many options. He turned to Lieutenant Emily Dawson, who was monitoring communications. Emily, keep scanning for any signals or transmissions. If the Deathworlders are communicating about the Voidbringer, I want to know. Yes, sir, Emily replied, her fingers already flying over the controls. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Daniel Ross worked tirelessly in the engine room, trying to stabilize the jump drive. The core was still unstable, and every attempt to repair. It felt like walking a tightrope. His team moved around him, their faces pale with exhaustion. Daniel knew they couldn't afford another failure. If the Eclipse broke down during a critical moment, it would mean the end for everyone aboard. Ross called Clara Hayes, stepping into the engine room. Her curly brown hair was tied back, and her expression was serious. How's it looking? Daniel wiped sweat from his brow. Not good. We patched it up enough to get us here, but it's only a matter of time before it gives out completely. We need better parts or at least some downtime to rebuild it properly. Clara sighed. We don't have either right now. Just do what you can. Daniel nodded grimly and returned to his work. He hated being the bearer of bad news, but there was no point sugarcoating the truth. Without a functioning jump drive, the Eclipse was vulnerable, sitting duck in the vastness of space. Sergeant Lucas Bennett and his security team spent their downtime preparing for the next encounter. They cleaned and checked their weapons, reviewed tactics, and ran simulations. The rescue mission on Game of 4 had been successful, but it had also shown them how outmatched they were. The Deathworlders' plasma weapons tore through their defenses with ease. Their ships were far superior to the aging Eclipse. If they wanted to survive another fight, they needed to be ready for anything. Lucas gathered his soldiers in the armory. Listen up, he said, his voice firm but calm. We got lucky last time. Next time, we might not. So we train harder, move faster, and stay sharp. Got it. His team nodded, their expressions resolute. They trusted Lucas implicitly and would follow him into the worst situations without hesitation. As the hours passed, the tension aboard the Eclipse grew palpable. Everyone knew they were heading into uncharted territory, chasing a fleet of ruthless invaders while bracing for an even greater threat. The uncertainty weighed heavily on the crew, but they refused to give in to despair. They had a job to do and lives depending on them. Then, without warning, the sensors picked up something unusual. Emily's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, we've found something. Planet habitable and showing signs of life. Ryan hurried to the bridge. What kind of life? As Emily adjusted the readings. It's hard to say. The atmosphere is breathable, and there are structures on the surface. Could be ruins or settlements. Ryan exchanged a glance with Clara. Plot a course. Let's check it out. The Eclipse approached the mysterious planet cautiously, its scanners sweeping the area for any signs of danger. As they drew closer, the view screen revealed lush green landscapes dotted with strange angular buildings. Some looked ancient, their surfaces weathered by time, while others appeared newer, hinting at recent activity. This doesn't make sense, Clara muttered. Whoever built these structures, it's not human, and it's not Deathworlder either. Ryan nodded. Send a landing party. We need answers. Lucas led the team to the surface, their boots crunching against soft soil as they stepped onto the alien world. The air smelled faintly of earth and flowers, and the sky above was a deep shade of purple. Strange plants swayed gently in the breeze, and distant mountains loomed on the horizon as they explored the nearest structure. They discovered carvings etched into the walls, symbols unlike anything they'd seen before. Parker examined them closely, his glasses sliding down his nose. These markings, they tell a story, a warning. What kind of warning? Lucas asked, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. Parker hesitated. It's difficult to translate, but it seems to describe a great calamity. something that came from the stars and devoured entire worlds. Ryan's voice crackled over the comms. That sounds like the Voidbringer. It might be, Parker admitted. But there's more. These people, they fought back. They created weapons. It's tools designed to combat the threat. If we can find them, they might give us a fighting chance. Lucas nodded. Let's split up. Search every building. Look for anything useful. The team spread out, combing the area for clues. Hours passed before one of the soldiers called out, "Over. Here. I think I found something." They gathered around a hidden chamber beneath one of the structures. Inside, they discovered rows of metallic devices, weapons unlike anything they'd ever seen. Sleek and compact, they hummed softly with energy. Alongside them were crates filled with glowing crystals and intricate machinery. This must be what the carvings were talking about, Parker said, his eyes wide with excitement. These could be the tools we need. Lucars radioed the Eclipse. "Captain, we've hit the jackpot. Get us back aboard. We're bringing these with us." Back. On the ship, the crew examined the artifacts carefully. Daniel worked with Parker to integrate the alien technology into the Eclipse's systems, hoping to boost their firepower and defenses. Emily studied the crystals, discovering that they emitted a unique energy signature capable of disrupting Deathworlder shields. "We might actually have a chance now," Ryan said, allowing himself a rare moment of hope. But the celebration was short-lived. The sensors detected movement nearby, a massive fleet emerging from hyperspace. The Deathworlders had found them. "All hands to battle stations," Ryan barked, his voice echoing through the ship. "Prepare for impact." The Eclipse braced itself as the Deathworlder ships surrounded them, their weapons charging ominously. This time, however, the humans weren't defenseless. Armed with newfound knowledge and alien technology, they prepared to fight back, not just for survival, but for the future of humanity itself. The battle that followed was fierce and chaotic, lighting up the darkness of space with bursts of energy and explosions. The crew of the Eclipse fought valiantly, their determination unwavering. For the first time, they held their ground against the Deathworlders, striking blow after blow with their upgraded weapons. But even as they gained the upper hand, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Deathworlders were relentless, and the Voidbringer loomed unseen on the horizon. Humanity's struggle was far from over, but for now they had proven they could stand against the odds. The battle raged on, the void of space lit up by bursts of plasma fire and explosions. The Eclipse twisted and turned under Captain Ryan Carter's command, dodging deadly blasts from the Deathworlder fleet while firing back with their newly upgraded weapons. The alien technology they had discovered on the mysterious planet was proving invaluable. Bright beams of energy shot out from the ship's cannons, piercing through the Deathworlder shields in ways that would have been impossible just hours before. On the bridge, the crew worked with precision and urgency. Lieutenant Emily Dawson monitored the enemy ship's movements, her fingers flying across the controls as she relayed vital information to Clara Hayes at navigation. "Out there." "Regrouping," Emily shouted over the chaos. "2 more ships incoming." Clara adjusted the ship's trajectory, her hands steady despite the tension gripping her chest. "Hold on," she muttered, pulling the Eclipse into a sharp dive. The maneuver narrowly avoided a barrage of plasma bolts that streaked past them, leaving trails of burning light in their wake. Ryan stood at the center of it all, his eyes locked onto the view screen as he gave orders. "Lucas, how are your teams holding up?" Sergeant Lucas Bennett's voice crackled over the comms. His security team was stationed throughout the ship, ready to respond to any breaches or boarding attempts. "We're good for now, Captain," he replied. "But if they get too close, we might not be able to hold them off." "Understood," Ryan said firmly. "Keep everyone sharp. We're not letting them aboard." Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Daniel Ross remained in the engine room, sweat pouring down his face as he struggled to keep the ship's systems running smoothly. The jump drive was still unstable, and every shot the Eclipse took rattled the fragile core even further. One wrong move could send the entire ship spiraling into oblivion. "Come on, hold together," Daniel muttered under his breath, his hands moving frantically over the console. Sparks flew as circuits overloaded, but he refused. To give up, the crew depended on command, so did humanity. Despite their efforts, the odds were stacked against them. The Deathworlder fleet outnumbered them 10-1, and their ships were larger, faster, and better armed. For every hit the Eclipse landed, the enemy retaliated with twice the force. The ship shuddered violently as another volley of plasma fire struck its weakened shields. "We can't keep this up much longer," Clara yelled, her voice strained. "Shields are at 20%. Ryan clenched his jaw, searching for an opening away to turn the tide. Then Emily spoke up, her tone. "Urgent, Captain. I've got something." Their lead ship, it's broadcasting a signal. It looks like a command frequency. Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Can you jam it?" Emily hesitated, glancing at her screen. "Maybe, but if I do, there's no guarantee it'll work. They might have backup systems." "Do it anyway, Ryan." Ordered. "If we can disrupt their coordination, we might buy ourselves some time." Emily nodded and set to work, rerouting power from secondary systems to boost the jamming signal. Moments later, the Deathworlder ships began to falter. Their formations broke apart, and their attacks became less coordinated. The temporary confusion gave the Eclipse a chance to strike back with renewed vigor, using the alien weapons they had salvaged. The crew targeted the largest Deathworlder vessel, the one emitting the command signal. A concentrated blast tore through its hull, causing a massive explosion that sent shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. Debris scattered in all directions, and several smaller ships were caught in the blast, crippled or destroyed. "Yes," Clara exclaimed, her voice tinged with relief. "That should knock them back a bit." But Ryan knew better than to celebrate prematurely. Even with the loss of their flagship, the remaining Deathworlder ships continued their assault, undeterred. These were creatures bred for war, and giving up wasn't in their nature. As the fight dragged on, Dr. Alan Parker monitored the situation from the lab, analyzing data from the alien artifacts. He noticed something unusual about the glowing crystals they had brought aboard. When activated, they emitted a pulse that seemed to interfere with the Deathworlder's biotechnology. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Parker realized it could be the key to ending the battle, Captain. He called out over the intercom. "I think I've found a weakness. Those crystals, they affect the organic components of the Deathworlders' bodies. If we can amplify the signal..." Ryan didn't need him to finish. "Do it. Whatever you need, make it happen." Parker worked quickly, connecting the crystals to the ship's main power grid. With Daniel's help, they rigged a makeshift device capable of broadcasting the interference pulse across a wide radius. It was risky overloading. The system could damage the Eclipse irreparably, but they had no other choice. When the device was ready, Ryan gave the order. "Fire everything we've got. Now." The Eclipse unleashed a devastating barrage of energy, combining the alien weapons with the amplified crystal pulse. The effect was immediate. The Deathworlder ships convulsed as their pilots and crews succumbed to the interference, their biomechanical enhancements failing under the strain. One by one, the enemy vessels fell silent. Drifting lifelessly in space, the bridge erupted in cheers, but Ryan silenced them with a raised hand. "Don't let your guard down. Not yet." He was right to remain cautious. Just as the last Deathworlder ship went dark, the sensors picked up a new threat, a massive object emerging from hyperspace. It dwarfed the other ships, its jagged silhouette, blotting out the stars. This was no ordinary vessel. It was a dreadnought, bristling with weapons and armor plating thicker than anything they'd encountered before. "What is that?" Clara whispered, her voice trembling. Ryan's expression hardened. "It's their mothership, and it's coming straight for us." With the jump drive still offline and the ship battered from the previous battle, escaping was impossible. The crew prepared for what might be their final stand. Daniel and his engineers worked feverishly to stabilize the engines, while Lucas and his team fortified the hull against potential boarding actions. Emily scanned the dreadnought for weak points, relaying her findings to Clara, who plotted evasive maneuvers. "This thing's got shielding like nothing we've seen," Emily reported grimly. "Even our alien tech won't penetrate it." Ryan stared at the view screen, his mind racing. There had to be a way to take it down or at least disable it long enough to escape. Then, Parker's voice came over the comms. "Captain, I've got an idea. Remember those carvings we found on the planet? The ones describing the Voidbringer?" Ryan frowned. "What about them?" They mentioned a specific frequency or resonance that could destabilize certain types of energy fields. "If we can replicate it, we might be able to collapse the Dreadnought's shields." Ryan nodded. "Do it fast." Parker and Emily worked together, inputting the calculations into the ship's targeting systems. Meanwhile, Clara positioned the Eclipse directly in the Dreadnought's path, buying time for the plan to come together. As the massive ship loomed closer, its weapons charging ominously, Ryan gave the order. "Fire." A single beam of energy shot out from the Eclipse, striking the Dreadnought dead center. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly, cracks began to form along the surface of its shields. The resonance frequency was working, weakening the protective barrier until it finally shattered without hesitation. Ryan ordered another salvo, this time aiming for the Dreadnought's core, the alien. Weapons unleashed their full power, tearing through the exposed hull and igniting a chain reaction inside the ship. A blinding flash of light filled the view screen as the Dreadnought exploded, scattering debris across the battlefield. The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed what had just happened. Against all odds, they had defeated the Deathworlder fleetor. At least driven it back. But Ryan knew the victory was fleeting. The Voidbringer was still out there. The Deathworlders weren't the only ones running from it. As the Eclipse limped away from the wreckage, its crew patched up the damage and tended to the wounded. They had survived, but the cost had been high. The ship was barely holding together, and supplies were running dangerously low. Still, they had accomplished something remarkable. They had proven that humanity could fight back even against overwhelming odds. Ryan stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars. The journey ahead would be long and uncertain, but one thing was clear. They couldn't stop now. Whatever the Voidbringer was, it posed a threat not just to Earth, but to the entire galaxy. And if humanity wanted to survive, they would have. To face it head-on, "We'll get through this," Ryan said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "We have to." The Eclipse drifted silently through space, its battered hull a testament to the battles it had endured. The crew moved with weary determination, tending to repairs and checking systems after their harrowing encounter with the Deathworlder fleet. Though they had emerged victorious, the victory felt hollow. The Dreadnought's destruction had been costly, and the ship's resources were stretched thin. Supplies were dwindling, and the jump drive still unstable was their only hope of reaching Earth or finding help. Captain Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, staring at the view screen as the stars flickered past. His mind was heavy with questions. What was the Voidbringer? Where had it come from? Why were the Deathworlders so terrified of it? He knew that humanity couldn't face such a threat alone, but for now, the Eclipse was all they had. Dr. 2. Alan Parker approached him, his glasses slightly askew, and his face lined with exhaustion. "Captain," he said quietly, "I've been analyzing the data we recovered from the Deathworlder ships. There's something strange." Ryan turned to him, his expression grim. "What is it?" Parker hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "It's not just a weapon or a creature. It's a Voidbringer. It's more like a force. It's a wave of destruction that consumes everything in its path. Entire star systems have vanished because of it." Ryan's jaw tightened. "How do you know this?" "The Deathworlder's logs mention coordinates," Parker explained. "Places where civilizations once thrived but are now gone. They call it the Silence. It spreads outward, erasing life wherever it goes." Ryan rubbed his temples, trying to process the information. If what Parker said was true, then humanity wasn't just fighting an enemy, they were racing against extinction. But how could they prepare for something they didn't fully understand? "We need allies," Ryan said finally. "If the Deathworlders are running from this thing, maybe there are others out there who can help us." Parker nodded slowly. "It's possible. Some species might see us as a common cause rather than a rival." Ryan turned to Clara Hayes, who was monitoring the navigation console. "Clara, plot a course for the nearest inhabited system. We'll start there." Hours later, the Eclipse arrived at a distant planet orbiting a dim red sun. Scans revealed signs of intelligent life structures scattered across the surface, energy readings consistent with advanced technology. The crew prepared cautiously, unsure of what to expect. Humanity hadn't always been welcomed by alien civilizations. Their current state left them vulnerable. Sergeant Lucas Bennett led a landing party to the surface, accompanied by Parker and a small security team. As they stepped off the shuttle, they were greeted by towering spires made of crystalline material, shimmering faintly under the reddish sky. The air smelled metallic, and the ground beneath their boots was smooth and glassy. Before long, figures emerged from the shadows. They were tall and slender, their skin iridescent and covered in intricate patterns that shifted like liquid light. Their eyes glowed softly, and their movements were graceful yet deliberate. One of them stepped forward, raising a hand in what appeared to be a gesture of peace. Parker activated the universal translator, which crackled to life with a series of clicks and whistles before producing intelligible speech. "Who are you?" the being asked, its voice melodic but firm. "I am Captain Ryan Carter of the human starship Eclipse," Ryan replied, stepping forward. "We mean no harm. We seek your aid." The being tilted its head, studying them curiously. "You are far from your home. Why have you come here?" Ryan hesitated, then decided honesty was their best option. "Our world is in danger. A great threat approaches, one that has already destroyed countless others. We believe it may come for you as well." The being's expression darkened. "You speak of the Devourer." Ryan exchanged a glance with Parker. "Is that what you call it?" As the being replied. "It is a force older than the stars, born of chaos and hunger. It consumes all without mercy." "Then you know of it," Ryan said urgently. "Can you help us stop it?" The being paused, its glowing eyes narrowing. "We cannot fight it. No one can. But we may offer you knowledge and refuge, if you choose to flee." Ryan shook his head firmly. "Fleeing won't save us. If we don't find a way to stop it, nothing will survive." The being studied him for a moment longer, then nodded. "Very well. Follow me." They were led into a vast chamber, deep beneath. The surface, illuminated by pulsating crystals embedded in the walls. In the center of the room stood a massive holographic projection, a map of the galaxy overlaid with swirling black tendrils representing the Voidbringer's path. "This shows its trajectory," as the being explained. "He moves up, slowly but inexorably. It will reach your world within cycles." "How much time does that give us?" Ryan asked. The being hesitated. "Perhaps 2 of your years, maybe less." Ryan clenched his fists, frustration bubbling beneath his calm exterior. 2 years wasn't nearly enough time to prepare for something so vast and incomprehensible. It was better than nothing. "What about these artifacts?" Parker asked, gesturing to the crystals around them. "Could they be used against it?" Being shook its head. "These are remnants of those who tried to resist. Their efforts failed." However, it pointed to a section of the map marked with symbols resembling the carvings they had seen earlier. "There are legends of a weapon, an ancient device created by the first builders. It is said to hold the power to halt the Devourer." "Where is it?" Ryan demanded. "It lies in the dead zone," the being replied. "A region of space, shrouded in darkness and peril. Many have sought it, none have returned." Ryan glanced at his team. They all understood the risks, but they also knew they had no other choice. "We'll go," he said decisively.
Us.
"Tell us how to get there." The being regarded him solemnly. "If you succeed, you may save us all. If you fail," it trailed off, leaving the implication hanging in the air. Back aboard the Eclipse. The crew prepared for their most dangerous mission yet. Daniel Ross worked tirelessly to stabilize the jump drive, knowing it might be their only chance of surviving the journey. Emily Dawson plotted the coordinates for the dead zone, her hands trembling slightly as she input the final calculations. Clara Hayes kept watch over the sensors, ensuring they weren't being followed. When everything was ready, Ryan addressed the crew over the intercom. "We're heading into uncharted territory," he said, his voice steady but filled with resolve. "What we're looking for may not exist. But if it does, it's our best chance to protect Earth and every other world out there. The Eclipse. leaped into hyperspace, hurtling toward the dead zone. As the ship emerged on the other side, the view was unlike anything they had ever seen. Stars were few and far between, swallowed by an endless expanse of shadow. Strange gravitational anomalies pulled at the ship, forcing Clara to make constant adjustments. Ghostly shapes drifted in the void-wrecked ships, and fragments of civilizations, long gone. Then, suddenly, the sensors picked up something. A massive structure loomed ahead, shaped like a ring encircling a pulsating core of light. It was ancient, its surface pitted and scarred by time. "That must be it," Parker whispered, awe evident in his voice. Ryan nodded. "Let's find out, Lucas." Led a team onto the structure, navigating its labyrinthine corridors with caution. Inside, they discovered control panels etched with unfamiliar symbols and chambers filled with dormant machinery. At the heart of the complex lay a pedestal holding a crystalline artifact glowing faintly with blue light. "This is it," Parker said, his voice tinged with excitement. "The weapon." But as they approached, alarms blared throughout the facility. Panels lit up, and robotic guardians emerged from hidden alcoves, their weapons trained on the intruders. "Take cover," Lucas shouted, raising his rifle. A fierce firefight erupted, the echoes of blaster fire reverberating through the halls. The crew fought valiantly, taking down the guardians one by one until the last one fell. Panting and bruised, they gathered around the artifact. "Can you activate it?" Ryan asked Parker. Parker examined the controls, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I think so, but it's going to take some time." As Parker worked, the facility began to shake violently. Warning lights flashed, and a mechanical voice boomed through the corridors. "Self-destruct sequence initiated. We've got company," Lucas yelled, spotting more guardians approaching from the distance. Ryan turned to Parker. "Hurry." With seconds to spare, Parker managed to activate the artifact. A beam of light shot upward, piercing the darkness outside. The shaking stopped, and the facility stabilized. "It's done," Parker said breathlessly. "Whatever this thing does, it's working." As the eclipse fled the dead zone, the crew watched in stunned silence as the Voidbringer's tendrils recoiled, retreating from the galaxy. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in their hearts. They didn't know how long the effect would last or if it would even be permanent. But for now, they had bought humanity and countless other species a second chance. Ryan stared. At the stars, his resolve stronger than ever. "We'll keep fighting," he murmured, "no matter what comes next."